What up, what up, what up, what up? Happy Friday, everybody. Let's talk some New York Giants on this beautiful Friday. Let's recap free agency. Let's give out some grades. Let's talk about it. Let's say, hey, have the Giants done enough? Have they not done enough? Let's drop our thoughts, opinions, and just have some fun, casual conversations in the chat. How about it on this great Friday afternoon? As I fix my AirPod during the intro of this live stream. So I see some of you were already waiting for me to kick up the stream. Appreciate you, Sean, for joining, a new moderator of the channel. Shout out to you, Sean, longtime viewer, longtime member as well. So, we appreciate you over here, Sean. I see you, Lord Templar. I see you, Immaculate Soul. What's up, everybody? Welcome in. Eli Lugo, appreciate you, or Lujo. Hope I said it right. I took two swings at it, so hopefully I got it right one of those times. But what's up? What's up? What's up, Dr. Pancake? What's up, everybody? I just want to drop in, talk some ball for about an hour or so, just kind of have one of these casual live streams where you drop your questions, your thoughts, whatever, and I react to them and answer them. So that's what I want to do today. I don't really have too much of an agenda for this specific live stream. If you guys want me to play some Madden in the background while we have these casual conversations, I'm about it. I'll do it. You just let me know. But really, I'm here to just kind of talk ball and hang out with you guys like we're buddies at a sports bar. That's essentially the whole goal here. So drop your thoughts, drop your questions, everything down below in the chat. And let me know if I'm lagging or if it is just Sean. If I'm lagging, I'll try and fix it. But you guys let me know. But all right, let's start getting into this chat. What's up, Ethan? What's up, Simply CC? What's up, everybody? NY Giants Insider saying decent free agency class, but now we need a receiver round one. I don't think we necessarily need one round one, but we definitely need one at some point in the NFL draft. And the reason why I say that is because the Giants aren't going to play with a ton of receivers this upcoming season. They're going to run a lot of 12 personnel. So they're not going to run a lot of 11 personnel. They're not going to go out there with three receivers all that often because that third receiver is going to be the tight end, Isaiah Likely, lined up in the slot. So they actually can afford to be a little thinner at receiver this year, but they're going to need to offset that thinness with more depth at tight end. So that's kind of my outlook on it. I think you're going to see them, if in years past they were carrying 6 or 7 wide receivers, this year maybe they carry 5 and they have an additional tight end instead, or they carry 5 and that 6th spot goes to the fullback, Pat Ricard. So that's kind of my outlook for it, but they probably will add a receiver at some point. It could be round one. We shall see. Let's go Big Blue, Daniel. Yeah, they probably can afford Wyatt Teller, but they're waiting for the market value to come down. So I think what's happening here is Wyatt Teller saw Elijah Vera Tucker get that big contract that he got. The Patriots overpaid AVT. That's what happened. And then as a result, all the other guards on the market said, yeah, I want more money. And now the teams like the Giants that still need a guard are saying, yeah, we're not paying you that money. We're going to wait for your price to come down, and inevitably it will. So I think they're going to bring back Greg Van Roten. I still think they're going to take another swing at Wyatt Teller. I just don't expect anything to get done soon. If you guys remember last year, we entered free agency and people were saying, hey, Greg Van Roten had a good year. He could get a pretty big contract in free agency. His price might go up. The Giants might not be able to re-sign him. Then nobody signed him, and the Giants did. In July, I think they finally got him under contract. So I think a similar story is playing out here. Guards are hitting the market, expecting a big payday. They're not getting it. And the Giants are saying, well, we did it last year with Greg Van Roten. Let's sit, let's wait, and let's get a steal later on in the offseason. That's what I think is going to happen. It could be Van Roten. It could be Teller. Could be somebody else. But they'll sign somebody eventually. They're just going to wait for the market value to come down, and I think that's the right move. Be patient. Corp, my South Florida brother from another mother. What's up? Not much, man. Just having fun on this Friday. What's up? What's up? Joshua saying, hey, Anthony, what grade do you give for our free agency choices? Right now, I'm hovering around the B+ with overall free agency. I think there's still room for improvement. I would like to see them add a little bit more competition at cornerback. I would like to see them add more competition, of course, at guard, as we just discussed. But really the most glaring issue for me is the lack of attention paid to the interior defensive line. You guys know, if you've been listening to this channel for a while, I have been banging the drum about this. It can't be Dexter Lawrence versus the world on the interior. That's why the Giants' run defense sucks. It's nice to release Bobby Okereke and upgrade with Tremaine Edmonds. That should help the run defense. It's nice to bring back Micah McFadden. That should help. It's not going to help enough if you don't add some real bullies in the trenches. I love Darius Alexander, but he's still developing, and he's a little bit more of a pass rusher than he is a run stopper. The Giants need another run stopper on the interior. That needs to become a priority for them as they hit this next wave of free agency and as they inch closer to the NFL draft. So I can't call it an A, can't call it an A plus, can't say it's perfect until they address the interior defensive line. I can live with them going competition committee at cornerback. I can live with them waiting out the market at right guard, but I need them to address the interior defensive line. That needs to be among the top priorities. And until they address it, I'm going to sit here at around the B plus because I do really like all the other deals that they've made so far. Yeah, I really like the idea of trading down the guard out of PSU. Let's just call him that because I don't know how to pronounce his name either. But I do like that idea. And in fact, I think it's one of the strongest options for the New York Giants. After this wave of free agency hit and the Giants upgraded their roster in many spots, but we're still largely left with holes across the roster, I realized trading down is now a much more likely possibility and probably the ideal scenario for the New York Giants. However, takes two to tango. So, Immaculate Soul. I do think we could see L'Jarius Sneed become an option. I don't think he's going to be expensive. He has been terrible the last 2 years, and he's been extremely injured. But 3 years ago, man, he was like the best cornerback in all football, right? So, Chiefs, that was robbery. They sold off on Sneed at the exact perfect time, right before he completely had his career fall off a cliff in terms of his production. But he reminds me of Jair Alexander. If you guys remember last offseason, we had a conversation. Jair Alexander was released by the Packers, and we said, hey, you know what? Maybe the Giants should take a low-cost flyer on him. Well, they didn't, but who did? The Baltimore Ravens. Could John Harbaugh take another low-cost flyer? Possibly. And L'Jarius Sneed would be that low-cost flyer this time around as an all-pro hitting the market here, coming off of consecutive seasons where he was completely injured. He played only 12 games the last 2 years. He didn't play well in those 12 games either. He's going to be dirt cheap, and somebody's going to sign him, and somebody's going to hope that he can return to form at that all-pro level that he used to be. Now, that being said, it didn't work out that way for the Baltimore Ravens and Jair Alexander. He ended up leaving football, and I think he quit. I think he ended up with the Eagles at some point too. Ultimately, I don't think that was the return that you want, but I still like the idea of taking the low-cost flyer, low risk, high reward kind of signing. And I think John Harbaugh will too. So I could see this happening for the Giants. I wouldn't bank on L'Jarius Sneed returning to all pro form, but if they do sign him, I would say, okay, we know that there's upside here, more upside than there is for most guys you're going to sign in this wave of free agency. So it would be pretty intriguing. Dennis saying, what up, Big A? Enjoy your content. Thank you, Dennis. Which receivers in the draft are my personal favorites? My WR1 in this year's draft is Carnell Tate. I love Carnell Tate's tape. I think he's really, really good and dynamic. I think he's a much better player at all three levels of the field than people give him credit for. I do not think that he is just a deep threat. I think he is a lot more than a deep threat, and he has some of the best hands that I've ever seen. That being said, Jordan Tyson's dynamic as well, but the injuries are a massive red flag that I don't think I can ignore. Mai Lemon is awesome, but this is a Giants team that is not going to run with a lot of slot receivers. So they need an outside big-bodied guy, and Carnell Tate's the one that I fall for. But then if you go into day two, Casey Concepcion, I know our guy Nato, who's always here in the chat, maybe he's not in here just yet, but maybe he is. Nato loves Casey. I like Casey a lot. And I also have a draft crush on Omar Cooper Jr., but I don't think he's going to get out of the first round. And if you wanted him at 37, maybe you hold out hope, but I don't think he gets there. So those are just a few. I know those are kind of early round targets. That's where I am right now. I've watched probably the top 6 on PFF's board. I'm not a fan of Chris Bell. I'll throw that out there out of Louisville, but I got to get through some more of these mid to late round guys. One of the ones that I do like in the mid to late rounds, though, is Ted Hurst out of Georgia State. That's one of my favorite sleepers in this class. Mansour Delane in the first is also an excellent option. If you do trade down to 9 or 10, kind of what Daniel's saying here, trading back to 9 or 10, draft Delane in round 1, try to get Anthony Hill Jr. in a guard. Yeah, I think that would be excellent. The New York Giants, they need another starting corner. They need some help at guard. Trading down makes sense. Again, it takes 2 to tango, though. And also, is Harbaugh going to pass up a guy on the board at 5 who he thinks could be a gold jacket guy? I don't think so. But trading down is definitely an option. Yeah, I don't mind passing on Teller and just re-signing GVR. GVR is a starter, and he's native of the area, as Sean mentions here, Long Island guy, and I think that he wants to be here. I know that he wants to be here actually. So I know you're saying I don't think he wants to play unless he's playing here. Yeah, yeah, I agree. I know that he wants to be back with the New York Giants based on information. So he's just hoping that he gets the contract that deems him a starter is essentially what this is, because he is a starter and he needs to be paid like a starter. He keeps getting paid as a depth piece. GVR is a starter. But again, the market is going to dictate the value, and the market is collapsing day by day for all of the free agents that are still sitting there. So guys like White, Teller, and GVR, their prices naturally are going to depreciate and come down. And eventually, I do think one of those two guys, or Zeitler, as you mentioned here, Lord Templar, one of these guys is going to get signed by the Giants at the low cost. They're just going to wait out the market. Yeah, I saw that. Dalvin, only $7.5 million. That's actually more than I thought Dalvin was going to get. I thought he'd be closer to about 5. I would have loved to have him back, though. But Christian Wilkins would be awesome. DT is a critical need for sure. Anthony, I don't know if you saw this. I think the way it works with compensatory picks at this point, as long as they only sign small contracts, or if a player is let go from a team, it won't count against the compensatory picks as of now. We're looking at possibly a 4 and a 5 next year. So that could be the reason they're, yeah, they're definitely keeping the compensatory formula in mind, but they did have a bunch of free agents sign big contracts. All of those guys that went to the Titans got overpaid by millions, and so they got a lot of money, and the Giants didn't spend nearly as much. So they should be able to get some compensatory picks next year, I do think. I think Christian Wilkins makes a lot of sense. I'd have to look at the rest of the market. I know that there are some players out there. I know DJ Reader's still out there, I believe. So that's somebody that I would have an interest in. Let me take a look here. Tier defenders. Yeah, DJ Reader. Calais Campbell has familiarity with John Harbaugh. I could see him being an option. And Sebastian Joseph Day most recently played with the Tennessee Titans under Denard Wilson. So those are really the big names on the market right now that I would kind of say. So same for you, Ferdo. Yeah, Styles is definitely still in play. Signing Tremaine Edmonds does not prevent the Giants from drafting Sonny Styles. Re-signing Micah McFadden certainly doesn't do that. I actually think the Giants do still need another starter, and I almost feel like they're telegraphing Styles at 5 by not bringing in another starter, but I understand they're thin on cap space, and they've also made it clear they do believe McFadden can be an LB2, although I think they would like him to be LB3 with the Styles in front of him. So, yeah, I think Styles is definitely still in play, but I think you have to keep an eye on Tennessee. I keep saying this. I've said it on Giants Collective a few more times, or a few times, not more times, but a few times. Sonny Styles makes perfect sense for the Tennessee Titans. Robert Saleh loves to build a defense with an elite linebacker in the middle of it. Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw, San Francisco. He invested a lot at that position when he was with the New York Jets. Robert Saleh is going to be very partial for Sonny Styles. So he might not make it to the Giants. Everybody keeps mocking Jeremiah Love there. That's an option for them. But so is Sonny Styles. What's going on, DeReal? Darion Real. Sorry. Dame Dalla, greetings, salutations. It's Friday the 13th, and we have our Jason. LOL. Wait, who's the Jason? Am I the Jason? No. I know Jordan Stout. Am I missing a Jason? Appreciate you. I do like that Pinnock is back. I think that's a good depth signing. It was a 1-year deal, veteran minimum. Can't ask for much more than that. Good depth. Giants definitely need safety depth. I don't think they needed to overhaul the safety spot. And while Downs is an option, Darion Real, he's a guy to consider for sure. But you don't necessarily need to bring in impact starters at safety, because you do have starting caliber players there. And now adding more competition and depth does make a lot of sense. I love the Ardarius Washington signing. I think Holland's going to have a better year, so they don't necessarily need to overhaul safety, but definitely bringing in pieces like Pinnock and Ardarius make a lot of sense. Mr. Do It Nice, thanks so much for the super chat saying, yo, I hope the BTJ rumors are true. I would be okay flipping a second and drafting Love with our first. It would be the most exciting offense in decades. Yeah, that it would be. I mean, that would be a ridiculous offense. If you're talking Neighbors, BTJ, Jeremiah Love, Isaiah Likely, Cam Scadaboo, Tyron Tracy Jr., Theo Johnson, I mean, you've got potential to be a top 5 offense in the NFL without a doubt. But what I'll say about the Brian Thomas Jr. rumors, I know that there's been conflicting reports. So Connor Hughes initially reported that the Jaguars were listening to offers on BTJ. Then Adam Schefter came out and said, teams called, but the Jaguars told them that they are not listening to offers and they won't be accepting anything for BTJ. Okay, what's my interpretation of this? The Jaguars took calls, did not get the offers that they wanted, which was reportedly a second-round pick, and decided to put it out there publicly. We're not going to trade Brian Thomas Jr. because they don't want him to know that he is being shopped. So I think he is available at the right price, but I think it's a lofty price. And I think that price is going to come down during or shortly after the NFL draft. So I would keep an eye on Brian Thomas Jr. I don't know if a second round pick is going to be moved by the Giants. They can't go all of day 2 without making a pick. You know, you need those 4-year long rookie contracts. They're crucial. That's how you build a team. Giants don't have a third. That number 37 pick is critical. So I don't think they can afford to trade that. I would love to have Brian Thomas Jr., but I don't think it's possible. Now, let's say he survives the NFL draft and he's still on the Jaguars. We get into training camp. All of a sudden, his market value is down to probably a third or a fourth or maybe a combination of both. Maybe then you make the trade. That's possible. So I could see the Giants freeing up more cap space in the summer and then making a move for BTJ, but I don't think he's going to get traded soon. I think he gets traded at some point. There's no way that the Jaguars are going to hold on to him after the butting of the heads that they just had, in my opinion. And the fact that he is at least somewhat on the trade block, I think where there's smoke, there's fire is essentially what I'm saying. And I think that the Giants will extinguish that fire at some point. It is expensive for sure. Yes, I do think Isaiah Likely could go for about 750 yards. I wouldn't put him much past that. No, his stats don't match the eye test, but he does have the capabilities. This is a little bit of a projection signing for the New York Giants. He's got potential to be better than he is, but also he was playing how many snaps when he was with Baltimore, but how many of those were as the second tight end on the field? Now he's going to be the first tight end on the field, and he's going to be their primary slot receiver. They're going to run a lot of 12 personnel, but it's going to look like 11 personnel because they're going to have a jumbo slot in Isaiah Likely. So he's actually going to play quite a lot because I think when he's on the field at tight end, okay, now he's your tight end. Oh, now you're going into 12 personnel. You're bringing Theo Johnson on the field. So Isaiah Likely's shifting into the slot. So I don't think he's going to come off the field nearly as much as he was in Baltimore. So he's going to play more and he's going to get more targets. And I think he's going to wind up being the number 2 target on this team behind Malik Neighbors. So instead of that 750 yards that Darius Slayton was putting up almost every year, I think Isaiah Likely is going to be the guy who can put up 750 yards every single year, but do it in a more dynamic fashion where he's moving across the formation, tight end, slot. He even plays out wide sometimes. So yes, I do think he can put up around 750. I wouldn't say he's a future 1,000-yard receiver, but between 500 and 800 yards, totally doable for Isaiah Likely. And I'm really looking forward to seeing him in this offense because I think he's kind of that skeleton key to unlock everything for this passing attack. Yeah, we did just touch on L'Jarius Sneed earlier. I did in response to somebody's question. And what I'll say about L'Jarius Sneed again is it reminds me of Jair Alexander when he was cut last year. I think there's a possibility that, somebody like John Harbaugh looks at him as a potential low cost, low risk, high reward kind of move. You sign L'Jarius Sneed to a very cheap contract coming off of 2 injury plagued and terrible years. You sign him and you hope that he kind of booms and, plays better. So I don't know. We'll see. And there we go. So Mai Lemon has a 30 visit with the New York Giants, according to Ryan Fowler. So we could talk about that right now since we're live. And Alex just sent me that. Thanks to Alex for sending me a little discussion topic. That was perfect timing. Appreciate my guy with the assist. And guys, if you're wondering where Alex has been the last couple of days, he has been sick. He's dealing with a really nasty illness, some sort of head cold or something. So that's where he's been, but still helping out, as you can see, letting me know that the Giants are having a 30 visit with Mai Lemon. So you guys drop your takes on Mai Lemon. Would you be happy with him as a New York Giant? Do you like him as a New York Giant? What's kind of your take on this one? I think Mai Lemon's a really, really good prospect, But like I kind of said earlier, I don't know if he's a fit for a New York Giants team that's going to run a ton of 12 personnel. So, and yes, interviews were a question. 40 time was a question. So I don't think he's a perfect prospect by any means, but does he have the ability to be JSN? Yeah, I think he's pretty comparable as a prospect when JSN was coming out of Ohio State. So can't really, that's a pretty high comp though. Sam, thanks so much for the super chat. Really appreciate you saying, hey, Tony, first 3 days of free agency is almost as exciting as the draft's first round. Yeah, I agree. Free agency is my favorite time of the year from a standpoint of talking about the Giants on a YouTube channel, making content and stuff. I mean, on Monday, I literally was like glued to my phone the entire day, creating content, discussing this, discussing that, reaction here. And it was so much fun. I loved it. And I love it every year. So free agency, it's probably the most exciting time of the year for me. I just have a ton of fun making that kind of content. And I'm looking forward to doing it for many more years. So, all right. Mai Lemon. Speaking of which, I got to get a little social media post up on that one. So let me multitask this if you guys do not mind. But yeah, Mai Lemon. So what I'll say about him, though, is I did watch his film. I watched quite a few games of Mai Lemon, and I came away extremely impressed. I think if you guys have been around the channel for a long time, you know years ago when Amon-Ra St. Brown was coming out of the NFL draft, I did a film breakdown on him on the channel and discussed how good of a prospect he is, really, and talked about why he might be a good target for the Giants in round 3 of the draft is kind of where he was being projected at the time. And so what I ultimately ended up saying was that a player like Amon-Ra St. Brown might project as a slot receiver, but he doesn't play like a slot receiver. He plays with a ton of physicality. He wins at the catch point. He's a red zone threat as a route runner, as a space finder, and as a jump ball guy. Amon-Ra St. Brown was really good at jump balls and contested catches and all of that stuff at USC in his college days. And then this offseason, I turned on the film from Mai Lemon and I was like, flashbacks. This is exactly what I remember. Mai Lemon is playing the exact same way at USC that Amon-Ra St. Brown was playing at USC. He was getting up there. He was making jump balls, 50-50 contested catches in the end zone, running crispy routes, run blocking. I mean, he was literally like a one-to-one translation. It felt like, not one-to-one. I'm not going to discredit Amon-Ra St. Brown because he's an excellent talent, but I just came away really impressed with Mai Lemon. I understand why he's got the hype of first round after really watching the film. He really reminds me a lot of Amon-Ra St. Brown when he was coming out of USC. But as Christian says, there are question marks about his character, and that's the part of the information that we're not necessarily privy to. As fans and as content creators and stuff, we don't sit in on those combine interviews. So we hear questions, we hear stories about his combine interviews being a little strange, and we see the videos of him at the public combine press conferences. And so there's only so much that we can determine. But what I will say, I know his family member, and he really wants to be a New York Giant. That's a great scoop from Joby. Appreciate that. That's pretty cool. I think a lot of players want to be a New York Giant right now. John Harbaugh coming to town with Jackson Dart throwing the ball. So, but yeah, I don't think Mai Lemon gives me Kadarius Toney vibes, Christian. I think that Kadarius Toney had major red flags that were readily apparent all throughout the pre-draft process that the Giants ignored. I think Mai Lemon's red flags are kind of similar to Malik Neighbors' red flags. They're not quite the same as Kadarius Toney's. I don't think Malik Neighbors has real red flags, but he does have a personality type that could rub people the wrong way because of his relentless competitive nature. And I think that's more of what we're hearing from Mai Lemon. I don't think we're hearing lazy, more into rapping than sports, that kind of thing. That was Kadarius Toney. But I think, young kid who thinks he's going to be the shit, and he probably will be, he's going to act like he's the shit. And usually those wide receivers end up being the shit. That's kind of how pardon my French, but that's kind of how I interpret it. And that's what I think Mai Lemon is. So if you didn't like Odell, if you don't like Malik Neighbors and the way that he wears Chrome Heart shades at the locker room, okay, then maybe you won't like Mai Lemon, but a lot of people will. And the New York Giants would, because he's going to be a stud, I think. So that's just kind of my personal reading of it. But who knows? It's Sean saying it's funny you said that because automatically started thinking about Tony when it comes to Lemon. Yeah, that's what Christian was saying there in the chat. I just personally disagree. I don't see that. I think that it's a little bit of a different personality type. But hey, to each their own. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. I just think Mai Lemon, he reminds me so much of Amon-Ra St. Brown. So I think he's an awesome prospect. But I saw Eli ask in the chat, when do you think he'll get taken? Maybe 37. Mai Lemon is a trade down candidate for the New York Giants. He's not leaving the first round. He's probably not leaving the top 15 or 20. So he's a player that I could see the Giants drafting if they move down about 5 to 10 spots and they take him there and they also get an extra second round pick or something in return. And I'll say this, if you're going to go wide receiver in this draft class, I think trading down is the move, because if you move down 5 to 10 spots, you're basically guaranteed to get one of Carnell Tate, Mai Lemon, or Jordan Tyson, and you can be really happy with that outcome, and you'll get an extra pick. So if the Giants are intent on taking a wide receiver, maybe don't take one at 5, maybe trade down and then take the best available of those 3 or the one that you like of those 3. So I think that's food for thought on drafting a wide receiver in the first round. But UBS Calzone, I kind of agree with you. I think Lemon is a slot receiver, and I think he's got the ability to play outside, but it's more like Amon-Ra St. Brown, where the majority of the time he's going to play in the slot and he'll move outside. And I don't think the Giants are going to go for that, because the way that they view it, they just spent $13 million a year on a slot receiver and a jumbo slot and Isaiah Likely. So that's not necessarily a need for them. But who knows? We'll see. And Mai Lemon's a really talented player. So and Sam with a super chat. Appreciate you, Sam. Doubling up today. Thank you so much, my friend. Longtime supporter of the channel. Really appreciate it. Saying, my fault, guys. Just trying to get this Mai Lemon post up and posted. But Sam saying, Tony, can you give your view on which positions we improved and which positions we decreased? I see a lot more backups were picked up. So I think where the Giants decreased is cornerback. They have not properly replaced Cordell Flott. Cordell Flott is a good and legitimate starter. Greg Newsome is a guy who needs to prove that he can be a starter once again. So they need to improve at cornerback, and they definitely are worse at cornerback now than they were a week ago. Where else? Linebacker, they improved significantly, I think. I think Tremaine Edmonds does a lot for defense that Bobby Okereke doesn't do. I think they improved at safety. Ardarius Washington's awesome. I think they decreased at guard just because they haven't signed one yet. But if they get Greg Van Roten back, then it's parallel. And they definitely improved at tight end, but they probably got worse at slot receiver, but they're trying to replace it in the aggregate. If you guys remember months ago, Alex and I started talking about Wan'Dale Robinson's contract extension during the middle of the season, and we had a big debate. Should the Giants re-sign Wan'Dale? Should we, pay up for him? And Alex was saying, yes, absolutely pay him. And I made the argument, don't pay him, because you can replace him in the aggregate. You can sign 2 playmakers to put up similar yardage and touchdowns for the same price. You can get 2 for 1 is essentially what I argued back a couple months ago. That's essentially what the Giants did. They're replacing him in the aggregate by bringing in $13 million a year Isaiah Likely. And what did they pay? $3.5 million for Calvin Austin. That amounts to close to the $17 million that you got for that Wan'Dale Robinson got by the Tennessee Titans. And now you just improved. I think you can replace that 1,000 yards through those 2 players, essentially, is how the Giants are looking at it. Plus, they now are open to drafting another player. So I think I'm going to say parallel move in terms of the playmaker department, decrease at guard, increase at linebacker, decrease at cornerback, increase at safety. That's where I'm at right now. Joe, thanks for the super chat saying we still need guard help. You think we could still go for Teller or somebody? Yeah, I think that they can go for Wyatt Teller. I just think they're going to wait on Wyatt Teller. I still think Teller's an option for the Giants. So is Kevin Zeitler. So is Greg Van Roten. But they're not in a rush to sign these guys, because the longer that they sit on the market, as you could see, guys, the reason Giants fans are clamoring, sign Wyatt Teller right now, get him right now, is because they don't want another team to sign him. It doesn't seem like any other team is in a big hurry or rush to sign Wyatt Teller. And I think the Giants recognize that. And so I think they're saying, okay, we want to sign him, but we don't want to pay him as much as he wants. Nobody else seems to want to pay him as much as he wants, but he wants to be here. So we'll wait for his market value to come down, and then he'll sign to be here. That's, I think, the strategy with Wyatt Teller. And if it's not with Teller, then it's with Zeitler. And if it's not with Zeitler, it's with Van Roten. Keep in mind, all three of these guys, we're talking about 33 and up. Van Roten's 36, Zeitler is 36, and Teller's 33. So I bring up their age, not because of contract terms and length of contract and stuff like that. I actually bring that up for a totally different reason that I bet many of you haven't even thought of. Old men don't want to sit through training camp. They don't want to go out there in the hot heat and practice all day long. They want to take the summer off. Or they want to skip, even if it's not training camp. I know there's a lot of crucial practice that goes into training camp and installation of playbooks and stuff. Maybe they don't want to do OTAs in May. They're like, man, I've been doing this for so long, so many years. We're in March now. May is just around the corner. We've only got a month and a half to go before mini camp starts. I don't want to do any mini camp crap. Screw that. I'll sign a contract in July, join a team halfway through training camp, practice for 2 weeks, play 2 preseason games, and then boom, I'm starting. That's what one of these guys is going to do. Zeitler, yeah, I know they're not really old. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to pick on anybody. They're not old at all. But relative to the NFL, when you're talking about a 36-year-old at guard, that's pretty old for an offensive lineman. But no, they're not old men. They're still very young for sure. But that's essentially the point that I'm trying to make. They have an old man's mentality and, the fact that they are getting closer to retirement and they want to do less of the bitch work that younger offensive linemen have to do. They don't have to do that. That's what it is. So whether it's Teller, Zeitler, Van Roten did this last year. He signed with the Giants in July. He didn't have to go through any of the BS of minicamp. He didn't have to go through half of training camp. He had to just join the team when the timing was right and go become a starter. That's what's going to happen with the Giants, I think. And a lot of these older veterans on the market, they're going to wait until minicamp and everything passes, and they'll sign on new teams around training camp. Personally, my take. So you guys can agree or disagree. Sam, tripling up. Oh, my goodness, Sam. Thank you so much today. I really appreciate the love. Can we pick up a decent defensive tackle or guard in round 2 to 5? Yes, absolutely. Round 2, there's going to be several names that are in contention at that number 37 overall pick. It just depends on how the draft board falls. I'll bring up a few of those names right now for you. Caleb Banks, I think, is going to go round 1. Caden McDonald probably goes round 1 as well. But Peter Woods out of Clemson, I think there's an outside chance he falls to 37. Kristen Miller could very well be on the board. Big 6'4", 310-pounder out of Georgia. Lee Hunter, he was getting a lot of buzz at the combine. 6'4", 330 kid out of Texas Tech. He's going to be an option for the Giants at the top of the second round, I think. Again, all these guys could go earlier than expected, but they're possibly there in round 2. Big Citrus, Dominique Orange out of Iowa State. He's probably got more of a third-round projection, but we've talked a lot about Giants potentially trading down. They could wind up trading down in the second round, take the best player available at 5, move down in the second round, get an extra third-round pick. That's a possibility. So that's where you could see a guy like Big Citrus, Dominique Orange, potentially sign. Or be a target, rather, for them to draft. Grayson Halton, as well, as more of a third-round guy. And Dante Corleone, cue the Godfather music, out of Cincinnati. He's potentially an option in the 3rd or 4th round. And then DeMonte Capehart is potentially an option in the 4th round. Everybody else I'm not familiar enough with. I know Zane Durant is a guy that Giants get mocked a lot in the 6th round out of Penn State. But those are the options really in rounds 2 to 4. I think Jawan Jennings is going to get paid more than people think. I know his market's coming down, obviously, because he's sitting on the free agency market still for days and days here. But nevertheless, I still think he's going to get more than the Giants are willing to spend, which is about the minimum. And that's what they just spent on Calvin Austin. And I don't think they're going to spend much more. So I don't think they're going to get Jawan Jennings. And I also think Jawan Jennings, some question marks about his health, question marks about the character. So, if he was such an integral part of the San Francisco 49ers and they need receivers so badly, why aren't they re-signing him? I think that's a valid question. I think there's probably more under the surface there. Do I think the O-line takes a step back because Brasillo is gone? It's tough to say. It's possible for sure. But at the end of the day, this is mostly the same offensive line with a potential change at right guard. And this offensive line, there's a couple reasons why the offensive line could take a step back. They could take a step back because Priscilla was gone. That's one. They could take a step back, too, because these guys have another year of mileage on them, whether you're talking Illuminor at 31. I mean, I'm confident in him. So are the Giants. That's why they signed him. He could regress, as to could Greg Van Roten if they wind up signing him in the summer and he starts, as could John Runyon as he gets 1 year closer to 30. So it could regress for age. It could regress because Priscilla was gone. It could also regress because the scheme is changing. Maybe the players on the roster, they're going to roll with them because that's what they can afford, but maybe they aren't the best scheme fits. But they could also progress because of the new scheme. Maybe the scheme actually does fit these players better. Maybe they are better as a result. They could take a step forward because of continuity, as Sean just mentioned in the chat. Continuity does go a long way on the offensive line. And this is largely the same unit. Right now, they've got 4 of the 5 starters returning. That's pretty damn good. Most teams have overturn on the offensive line. The Giants don't seem to have any because I think Greg Van Roten will sign back. So they could have all 5 of their starters back for the 3rd consecutive season. You expect them to take a step forward. Again, maybe they take a step back because Priscilla's gone. But I think it could go either way. And at the end of the day, I'm going to bank on step forward rather than step back because of the new coaching staff. I really trust John Harbaugh. John Harbaugh is a developer of talent. He is a leader of men. And so I think that the New York Giants offensive line should at least be comparable to what it was last year, personally. So maybe they're top 10 again. Maybe they're top 15. I think somewhere in that range. I still don't think that they're a top 5 unit. I don't think they have that potential. But who knows? Maybe they do take a step forward. Yeah, Eli, I do think that drafting Jeremiah Love 5th overall is something the Giants are considering. Now, I know that there was contentious debate about Kenneth Walker. Should the Giants sign him? Should they not? Are they actually interested in him or are they not? Well, they didn't sign him because he got $15 million or $14 million a year from the Chiefs. But the reporting is that they did make an offer. They just didn't make the highest offer. They weren't willing to pay that much. But they did send a contract offer to Kenneth Walker. So they were serious about, signing a top running back. They just didn't want to pay the exact price. How do you get around that? Well, you draft a top running back and you pay a cheaper price. Now, I'll be honest, guys, I don't love the idea of drafting Jeremiah Love at 5. You draft Jeremiah Love at 5, he's immediately, before he takes a snap, a top 10 highest paid running back in the NFL. He gets $9 million a season as a running back. That doesn't make a ton of sense. But then again, he's a potential generational Hall of Fame talent. So maybe you just take the best player available. I could see the arguments both ways, but for me personally, when you're looking at market value, people say positional value. I don't like to think of it as much as positional value, the way that I view it as market value. Let's say you want to sign a WR2 in football right now in the free agency. Romeo Doubs just got $20 million. Alec Pierce just got $28 million. Slayton gets 12 as a WR3. That's Wandale got 17. Carnell Tate, if you draft him at 5, gets 9. Positional value, market value. Let's say you want to sign a running back in free agency. Travis Etienne got, $9 million a year, $12 million a year, somewhere in there. Jeremiah Love gets $9 million, $12 million a year. He's one of the highest paid running backs in the NFL if you draft him. Not as good market value. You look at the free agency for linebackers. I'll make this argument for Sonny Styles too, even though I love Sonny Styles and I would take him at 5. Sonny Styles, Devin Lloyd just got paid as the highest paid linebacker on the market, $15 million a year. Sonny Styles, you draft him, well, he's getting paid more than Leo Chenal. Leo Chenal just got $8 million a year. He's a proven good linebacker. Sonny Styles is getting 9 if you draft him at 5. Market value. Now you look at cornerback. You want to bring in a Trent McDuffie to your team like the Rams did. Okay, $30 million a year. You want to sign a Cordell Flat, $15 million a year. You want to, and he's like a CB2 or 3 on a lot of teams. CB1, shut down CB1 if that's what you think you're getting. Man, you're paying at least $20 million a year. You draft Mansour Delane at 5, you're paying him $9 a year. That's good market value. So that's kind of the way that I look at drafting those kinds of players. Jeremiah Love, Sonny Styles, compared to a Carnell Tate or a Mansour Delane. It's about market and positional value. So I use a blend. I don't just look at positional value, but I look at the market value. And I think that really should factor in when you're talking about drafting somebody at 5, the fact that you're paying them $9 million a year, well, what could you get at the running back spot for $9 million a year? Because you could get pretty damn good at the running back spot for $9 million a year. The whole idea of drafting prospects is that you get them on these cheaper, cost-controlled rookie contracts, right? So by drafting a running back or a linebacker at 5 and a safety as well, I think I see J-Mac just mentioned Caleb Downs. By drafting one of those guys at 5, you eliminate the argument of drafting a cheap player on a rookie cost-controlled contract. You don't get the same value as, obviously, we've seen this cheat code. Teams draft a quarterback, then they go all in, build around him because the quarterback is on a rookie contract, right? That's the most value that you get is from a quarterback, of course. But it goes for edge rusher. Why do you think edge rushers go off the board in the top 10 picks so often, right? Abdul Carter, number 3 overall. Abdul Carter, if he hit the open market right now, he might get a Jalen Phillips contract of $20 to $25 million a year. He probably would get more. But the Giants have him on a cost-controlled deal of about $10 million a year. Good market value. So, again, we'll discuss all that more in depth as we get closer to the draft. And that's not me ruling out Jeremiah Love. That's not me saying he's not on my board at 5. That's not me ruling out Sonny Styles. But, again, you have to play a value game here. And when you're drafting positions of premium, left tackle, right tackle, cornerback, wide receiver, quarterback, edge rusher, those are positions of premium value. And you get tremendous value by drafting those guys inside the top 10. You don't get that same value when you draft players at less premium positions like linebacker, safety, and running back, and tight end. So, like even Brock Bowers, that's why he fell outside of the top 10. Everybody's like, well, he might be the best player in the draft. Why isn't he going top 5? Because of the positional market value. So, it took me a while to get to that point, but I figured I'd provide you guys with plenty of examples because I don't think enough people talk about that. But I do think it warrants a larger discussion, though. More people should talk about that, and more people should break that down. And that's why I'm doing that for you guys here on the channel. I'm personally not a big Reek Woolen guy. I actually would have preferred Flott to Woolen. I don't know, 50-50 on that. I don't think the Giants necessarily missed out on Reek Woolen, though. I think he was a little pricey for the production that he's had. UBS Calzone, gut feeling. Yes, I do think we're trading Tibbs. And I do think at some point in this draft, we're trading down, whether it's at 537 or later. I think we're trading down to get extra picks. But I do think Thibodeau will be traded. I just don't know if it's going to happen before or after the NFL draft because it could happen during training camp. I could totally see that. Or during the season. All right, let's see. Yeah, Burns was restructured today. They freed up $15 million in cap space. That was not because they're about to make another signing or big move. I know a lot of fans saw that and they said, wow, oh my goodness, you're going to restructure Burns? Let's go sign Wyatt Teller now. The Giants had $12 million in cap space before signing Tremaine Edmonds and Isaiah Likely. So they needed that 15 just to get those guys under contract or under the cap. So that's why he was restructured. But yeah, it is big news. I forgot to mention it, so thanks for reminding me, Michael. And congrats to you, Brian. Shout out to you, Brian. $21 million signing bonus today. Shout out to you, Spider. Good for you, man. Could you imagine? Imagine you're an NFL player and you're like, oh, this next year I'm going to make $40 million. And then all of a sudden the team's like, yeah, we're actually going to restructure that. Here's $20 million of it right now. Christmas. I can't even imagine. These NFL players get a lot of money. Good for them. You think Reese is an option for us? Yes, I do. But the problem with Arvell Reese is he doesn't want to play inside linebacker. He wants to be an edge. And so I do think that the Giants could draft him at 5. I'm not saying that they can't. But I do think if he's on the board at number 5, teams are going to blow up the line calling the New York Giants to trade up to 5 if Arvell Reese is on the board. I think they're going to be like, we'll give you this, that, and this is that. Because they're going to view him as a premium potential edge rusher. Arvell Reese is this draft class's version of Abdul Carter, converted linebacker to edge rusher who has sky-high potential, unlimited ceiling. That's Arvell Reese in this draft class. That's not me saying he's the same prospect as Abdul Carter. I actually think Abdul Carter was a better prospect because he had a year of tape at edge rusher. Meanwhile, Arvell Reese has not really played edge rusher, but he has played this kind of Weapon X role where he played edge and he played inside linebacker, kind of moved all over the place. And the Giants could draft him and have him play that specific role. He could be the linebacker next to Tremaine Edmonds that also, hey, rotates out onto the edge and pass rushes from the interior, from the edge, and all over the place. Giants could have him do that, but at that point, you've got Kayvon. You can have Kayvon kind of do that, But Sonny Styles provides you more stability at inside linebacker with the potential to do that as well. So I really think if Arvell Reese is on the board at 5, he is an option for the Giants. I won't discount it. And I think he would be a sick inside linebacker, but he said he wants to play on the edge. That's the intention. Teams view him as an edge. Somebody's going to give a haul to move up and take him and make him their next premium edge rusher if he's on the board at 5, in my opinion. Yes, that's absolutely true. You do need $10 million in the season to operate. So you actually need $10 million just for the draft class. So actually, let me take a look here. How much do the Giants need in effect? How much do they have in effective cap space? Well, right now they have $18 million in effective cap space, but that does not include. Okay, so the effective cap space takes into account the rookie draft class, 28 down to 18. So $10 million is what they need just for the draft class. And then they need another 10 for in-season practice squad and emergency signings, as Sean's mentioning. So really, they need $10 million just to get through the draft. And then after the draft, they're going to need to create another $10 million in cap space. So they really need to make another $20 million in cap space before the start of the season. I could see that, Lord Templar. If Arvell Reese is on the board at 5, I could totally see Cincinnati moving up. Where are they picking? 11 or somewhere around that range? I could see them moving up for Arvell Reese and giving up. I mean, listen, a high floor was set last year for small leaps to draft an edge rusher. The Falcons trading for James Pierce Jr. Oh, that trade looks terrible now. I mean, it looked terrible then, but it looks so bad now with everything he's got going on off the field. But they traded up just a few spots. I think from the top of the second round into the back of the first round, they gave up a future first round pick. Bengals moving from 10 to 5. I see Lord Templar saying they're at 10. If they move up those 5 spots for an edge, Giants should be asking for a first round pick. They should be saying, okay, well, James Pierce Jr. got a first round pick sent to the Rams last year. Give us a first or at least a second. And then it comes down to, okay, do you want another second in this year's draft? Then the Bengals are going to say, okay, we'll take Arvell Reese, but we won't make a selection in the second round. We'll give that to the Giants. We'll pick again in the third. Makes sense. Or the Giants could say, all right, you give us a third this year and a second next year. Now we're cooking. You get a second round pick in that 2027 draft. It's supposed to be loaded. So, yeah, Bengals, absolutely a team to keep an eye on. Sam, thanks so much, buddy, saying, will FSG repeat their mock draft based on 30 visits? Also, where can we find the G-Men list of visits? Yes, 100%. I will be doing another mock draft based on the 30 visits. That was something that I know you really did appreciate, Sam. I remember your comments, and obviously you're bringing it up now. So, and thanks again for another super chat. You're super generous today. I know it's something that you really enjoyed, and a lot of fans of the Giants and audience of Fireside Giants, you guys loved the mock draft on the 30 visits. And I did too, because it really put everything into perspective for me. You get a list of the 30 visits and you say, okay, they're targeting these positions. They're looking at these guys. Here's where they could draft them. This is what the draft could look like. All of those guys that they drafted this past year, they had in for 30 visits. And I think I did a mock draft based on the 30 visits that had them taking Abdul Carter, Jackson Dart, Cam Scatterbo, and Marcus Bowe, and maybe even Darius Alexander. I know they had all those guys in for 30 visits. So when I did that mock draft, at the very least, all of those names were mentioned. So you knew if you watched this channel last year, all of these guys could be selections for the Giants in these respective spots. And then they ended up being selections. So I will definitely do the mock draft based on the 30 visits again, because I think it's really valuable insight and it's really fun. And it's a good exercise for me to look. So I know, okay, these are the targets. These are the guys I need to study and really know about by the time the draft rolls around. So yeah, you'll get that for sure. Also, where can we find the G-Men list of visits? We will probably fire up a live tracker that we update with every visit on empiresportsmedia.com. So definitely check that out. We have a newsletter now for empiresportsmedia.com, which I'm going to drop actually in the chat here so you guys can check that out. And you guys can subscribe to that if you would like. We're going to send newsletters about the New York Giants, our written articles, updates, recaps. Oh, this is what the Giants did this week. This is what, here's a link to our latest Empire Sports Media article. Here's a link to our latest Fireside Giants YouTube video, all that stuff. So definitely subscribe to that. Check it out. And that's where you can definitely find all of the top 30 visits. They will be mentioned at some point on ESM, and we will have probably a working live article that constantly tracks what the 30 visits are. But outside of ESM, follow Fireside Giants because we post all the 30 visits. And also, there are other great websites as well that you can check out. Sometimes you kind of have to wrangle up that information on your own, but it's out there if you go looking for it. And that's our job. We'll wrangle up the information for you and synthesize it. Best guess who starts at safety? Javon Holland starts at safety, of course. And then next to him, I think Ardarius Washington's going to steal that job, man. I think he's going to steal that job. Tyler Nubin's bad run tackling, bad pursuit angles. I think they're going to catch up to him. And I think we're going to see Ardarius Washington steal that job. Now, I think Tyler Nubin probably begins as the starter. I think as the year goes on, if he doesn't play well, I think you're going to see Ardarius Washington play a lot this year. But who knows? Maybe Tyler Nubin's been working on some things. Maybe he gets better. I hope he does. Fludot saying, what's up, bud? I didn't make the live, but here I am late to show feeling important. Appreciate you, Fludot. And you're here. We are live. So appreciate you joining us. What else? Hey, the positional market value thing, it doesn't always work because sometimes you miss on the player. Doesn't always work. But it's something that you need to consider when you're drafting up at the top of the draft, in my opinion. Styles or Downs? Styles. The question marks about Downs' knee, I can't tell what's true and what's not there. Does he have a degenerative knee? Does he not have a degenerative knee? We're not privy to that information, but the teams are. If he does, you don't take him at 5, in my opinion. If he doesn't, okay, now you're open to it. But I think Styles is a better prospect anyway. I think Downs is really good, but I don't think he's the generational Hall of Fame talent that people made him out to be early on and the hype that we initially bought into. I've watched more of the film, and I still think he's super impressive, and I think he's got all-pro potential. He reminds me a lot of Eric Berry. That's my pro comp for him. If you guys remember Eric Berry for the Kansas City Chiefs, I mean, what a beast he was. That's who Downs reminds me of. But I don't think that he is physically, athletically gifted the same way that Styles is. Therefore, I go Styles. Yes, Luke, we did see Snead got released. We talked about it a bit in the earlier portion of the live stream, and my take so far is that, yeah, Luke, he was a dog. My take is that Snead would be a great addition for the Giants on a super cheap prove-it contract. He's played terrible football the last 2 years. He's barely played any football the last 2 years due to injuries, so you can't invest a lot into him. But, yeah, no problem, Luke. But if you want to take a 1-year, $5 million flyer on a former All-Pro, I could be open to that. Daniel becoming a member. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. I actually just updated the stickers. I think they're stickers or emojis, whatever, for the members today. I removed some old ones and I added a couple of new ones, and I'm planning on adding more in the coming days just to provide a little extra value to you guys as members. Can't thank you all enough for the support. It means the world to us, and it helps us out so much as we operate this channel and all of our other channels and projects. So I appreciate it, Daniel. Really, really do. And so I'm working on getting some better stickers going for you guys. That's the least I can do. And we've got plenty more planned in the coming days, months, and weeks. So stay tuned. Thoughts on Mansour Delane if we trade down to 10? Love it. If you trade down to 10, you get an extra second-round pick, and you get an elite cornerback potentially on a cost-controlled contract. Now you're cooking. And the Giants really need a cornerback. So I wouldn't take Delane at 5 because I think he's not the same caliber prospect as a Styles. He's not the same caliber prospect as even a Love or a Downs. So I wouldn't take him as 5 at 5. But I would trade down to 10, get an extra pick, and absolutely take him there. So Delane's really good. I mean, teams stopped throwing to his side of the field. My bad, guys. Just had to fire off a couple of texts real quick. Yeah, I appreciate you, Sean. And my bad. I didn't realize how long the Kadarius Toney. I actually left the Kadarius Toney sticker or emoji in there too, just because I think that's funny. I think when Jalen Hyatt drops a pass next year, we can spam the chat with Kadarius Toney emojis. That would be funny. But I removed the Daniel Jones one. That one's a nightmare. Bad memory. And there was a Saquon Barkley one in there. That had to go. Snakequan. But more stickers on the way. David saying, why we kept Evan Neal? Please answer that. Okay, so the Giants kept Evan Neal because he's cheap. They signed him to the veteran minimum, $1.3 million. So, and if you cut him, zero dead cap. He might not make the roster in July. They're not signing him. If the why that you were afraid to hear was they signed him so that he can compete for the starting right guard job, yes, long shot, he's got a chance of competing for the starting right guard job. Did they sign him to start at right guard? Absolutely not. They signed him because John Harbaugh really likes ginormous guards. He likes oversized guards. One of them being Daniel Falele, who Ravens fans can't stand. Giants fans probably can't stand either, just the idea of signing Daniel Falele. But instead of signing Daniel Falele, okay, you sign Evan Neal for probably cheaper. And at least he knows the system and everything. The part of the Evan Neal signing that was more confusing to me was not the fact that the Giants brought him back, the fact that John Harbaugh brought him back. I can't believe Evan Neal chose to come back to the New York Giants. The amount of vitriol that was thrown his way, listen, he threw vitriol our way too. Giants fans have not been nice to him. He wasn't nice to Giants fans. Toxic relationship. If there was ever a guy that I thought needed a change of scenery, it was Evan Neal. So the fact that he's staying with the New York Giants absolutely floored me. I was shocked by that decision on Neal's part. From a Giants perspective, it kind of makes sense. You invested a top 10 pick into him years ago. He's as cheap can be at 1.3 million veteran minimum. You might as well bring him in. You have to have 15 offensive linemen going into training camp. Now here's another body, for the cheapest price possible. Might as well. Plus, John Harbaugh's never coached him before. John Harbaugh's never met him and gotten into a room with him or been in a training room with him. It's a clean slate. So Harbaugh loves oversized 6'8" guards like Daniel Falele. He probably is like, okay, Evan Neal, all you got to do in this new scheme, it's a different scheme, right, guys? Because let me break it down this way. Previously, the Giants didn't have fullbacks on the roster, and they didn't run with extra tight ends as often as the Ravens did. The Ravens run a lot of these wide zone rushing attacks, these crack tosses, these wide zones and these outside zones that require a lot of pulling and a lot of horizontal movement. The New York Giants tried to do stuff like that, but they failed miserably because their offensive lineman, Evan Neal being one of them, he doesn't have the lateral agility to move horizontally and make those blocks. Now he doesn't need to. In the Ravens system, the guards are not pulling in power blocking schemes. It's wide zone. And so what that means is it's the fullback and the tight ends doing the leading and the pulling. And that's why Isaiah Likely's so valuable. That's why they re-signed Chris Manhertz. That's why they made Pat Ricard the highest paid fullback in the NFL. So for Evan Neal, you don't have to do any of the stuff that you sucked at in the past. You don't have to play on an island and be laterally agile as a right tackle. And you don't have to be a pulling guard. You just put your hand in the dirt, and as soon as the ball is snapped, you stand up and you hit the guy in front of you. That is all Evan Neal has to do now. Could that unlock the best of Evan Neal? Probably. Is the best of Evan Neal actually good enough to be on the football field all 17 games? Probably not. But there's really no harm in signing him to the veteran minimum, especially when it's a deal that you can cut him from with zero dead cap hit at the start of training camp or whenever. So he might not even make it out of camp, but he might. And I do think it's a worthwhile signing because it's really cheap and it's good value. And again, if he's ever going to succeed, it'll be in a scheme like this where he doesn't have to do the pulling, and Pat Ricard and Isaiah Likely and Chris Manhertz are doing the pulling instead. Dare on Real. I think I said Darian Real earlier, and now I'm reading it. Is it Dare on Real or is it Darion Real? I don't know. You let me know. But who do I think is the best pickup so far? Okay, the most underrated pickup, the best low-key pickup, sleeper, are Darius Washington. Are Ardarius Washington is a starting level player, and the Giants signed him at a backup price because of injuries. But he is a starting caliber player when he's healthy. So he's my favorite low-key pickup. Like, I like Greg Newsome. I like some of these other smaller signings, but I love that signing. The best pickup out of the splashy ones for me is Isaiah Likely, because I like the value that the Giants extracted from that deal. Tremaine Edmonds getting paid $12 million a year, that's fine, and he's good. But Isaiah Likely is getting paid as the third highest tight end in the NFL. And you might hear that and you think, this guy's been a tight end too his entire career. Why is he getting paid that much as a tight end? Well, they're not paying him as a tight end. Go look at what Romeo Doubs just got. Go look at what Wan'Dale Robinson just got. Go look at what Alec Pierce just got. They're paying him as a wide receiver. View it from that perspective. Because from that perspective, you're paying $12 million for a slot, because Isaiah Likely is a tight end. That's how he's labeled. But 55% of his snaps in 2025 came in the slot. So he's more of a slot receiver. Now, would you rather pay 12 to 13 million for Isaiah Likely as a slot receiver, or 17 to 19 million a year for Wan'Dale Robinson as a very limited, undersized slot receiver? Isaiah Likely, an oversized jumbo slot who also plays tight end, so he provides value in the running game. He's a cheaper, if you look at him as a slot signing, he's mad cheap. If you look at him as a tight end signing, you look at it as a fair value contract. So that's my favorite pickup so far because of the value of the deal. And I really think long-term, man, Isaiah Likely could be a real weapon in this offense. But I also love the signing of Jordan Stout. If you're making a punter the highest paid punter in the NFL, you're still barely paying him relative to the rest of the cap space. I love that. Same thing with Ricard. If you're paying a fullback the highest paid fullback contract, you're barely paying him compared to the rest of the guys in the league. So I love those signings as well. Those low-key pickups, those are the ones that change the scheme. You build the scheme around those guys, and you change the culture, and you just bring in talent. An all-pro punter, an all-pro fullback. You're just bringing in all-pro talents at low cost, extracting value. So this is, if you guys have been listening to this whole stream, you're seeing a trend. The way that I really look at football and the NFL, and the way that I evaluate cap space, market values, positional values, and I'm always looking at how can you extract value here? How can you extract value there? That's why I made the argument months ago about replacing Wan'Dale in the aggregate, which is what the Giants did by signing Likely and others. They replaced Wan'Dale in the aggregate. I don't always think replacing people in the aggregate is the best thing. You can't do that at quarterback. You can't do that at edge rusher. But in certain instances, you can. And you always have to play the value game with these contracts. And the Giants haven't been doing that for years. And that's why I'm so excited about this new era with John Harbaugh, Donna Ponte, and this new front office and this new way of building things. Because now they're extracting value, doing this positional value, market value game that I always play in my head, but that Joe Shane and the Giants haven't played with Kevin Abrams. And so it's exciting, and it makes me happy. Makes Tony happy, boy. Nicole, thank you so much for renewing the membership. Member for 9 months and asking, where would you take Lemon in this draft? I think Mai Lemon is very worthy of being a top 20 pick. I think a team could potentially take him top 10. I think he probably goes around 15 to 20 just because of the board. But where would I take him personally if I'm the Giants? It'd be a trade down into the 15 to 20 range. That's where I would take him if I were the Giants. He's not going to last to 37, though. Styles or Love at 5, very possible. Could still be Downs as well. Excuse me, guys. What else? We've already crossed the 1 hour mark. We'll go for a little bit longer. But you guys keep dropping some questions in the chat. Joey saying, did you see Jordan Davis void cap hit? Why don't we use void years for guys like Burns and AT? So I think the reason why they don't use void years for guys like Andrew Thomas is because of injuries. That's the question. For Burns, I don't think it's outside of the realm of possibility. He's got a $44 million cap hit each of the next 2 seasons now after being restructured today. But I don't think they're going to put void years on the end of that deal. I think they're going to extend him next year and maybe attach void years to that contract. But void years are coming. I agree with you, Sean. I don't think they're in a position to use them right now. I don't think they have to use them right now. But next year, I do think they could start adding some void years into these contracts because the cap just keeps going up. So it almost cancels out. It doesn't completely, but it does a little bit. And you've got a quarterback on a rookie contract. You need to maximize that window. So the Giants are going to start using void years, I think. Everybody's going to start using them. And people say, hey, well, you look at the Saints and what a cap disaster they're in, and it's like, and they've sucked for years, but it's like, okay, the Saints were really good all those years that they had Drew Brees, though, because they had a quarterback, so they used those void years to maximize that window, and they should have won another Super Bowl in that Drew Brees era. They didn't. Rams robbed them, refs robbed them, whatever. That's okay. But the void years can really help you build a powerhouse roster if you use them properly. You got to pay the piper at some point. But as long as you have a quarterback, paying the piper ain't so bad. Sean with a very important chat here that everybody needs to listen to. He says, everyone, if you haven't liked or subscribed, please do so. It helps the channel tremendously. Amen. We can easily get to 30K subs by the start of training camp, and that's my goal. Sean, I actually was going to start bringing this up on the channel. My goal is to get to 30K subs by next month. I want to get there by the NFL draft. We've been growing in subs tremendously lately. We've been getting so many new subs. We've been getting so many likes. Our views have been up. The love has been amazing. We're getting so much love from you guys. The amount of appreciation that I have, I can't even put into words. And I'm making the lofty goal. I want to get to 30K by the draft. Can you guys help me do that? Let me know. Share this channel with your friends. If you say, hey, my friend loves the Giants, he doesn't seem to watch a lot of YouTube, I'm going to share it with him, this channel. It would mean the world to me. So, yes, definitely subscribe if you haven't, guys. A lot of times I'll look at the analytics on videos and live streams, and you'd be surprised. Sometimes 60% of the viewers have not yet subscribed. And I'm like, I know a lot of these people come back and they watch over and over. They probably just don't think to hit the sub button. So smash it for me, guys. Really appreciate it. And also smash the like button because that helps our videos and live streams get fed out to other Giants fans that haven't heard about us yet. So thank you, Sean, so much. And thank you to everybody. Please sub and help us reach our goal so that we can continue making excellent content and talking Giants forever. Corp. Anthony, trivia question. What is the Giants' first win of 2026? Week 1. How do you like that answer? Is there a guard worth taking at 37? Let me take a look. I haven't really dove into the guard draft class yet. Oh, Emmanuel Pregnon. I don't know if he's going to be there at 37, but that Oregon kid's pretty damn good. And Chase Besantis, I don't know if he's worth taking at 37, but he's definitely going to go in the second round. But those are pretty much your only two options. It's thin this year. Very thin. You want the Madden smoke? I'll be honest, man. I'm not that good at Madden. I'm okay. As, the biggest football nerd in my friend group, I can whoop any of my casual friends in Madden easily. I know plays, I know play designs, but the problem with Madden is when I play Madden players, they're not playing simulation nerdy playbook football. They're playing Madden. You get what I'm saying? They glitch the game. They do these little tactics. They watch the YouTube videos. They get the strategies and do things like that. And that's the stuff I don't know because I don't watch like the breakdowns and stuff on Madden. So I get my ass kicked when I play online. But if I'm playing couch play, I'll whoop some ass. That's for sure. Who's the best player in the draft if everyone was available? Who's the player you want in this draft? All right, let's just say we're not talking positional value. We're not talking where the Giants are drafting. If I could just have somebody from the draft class, it'd be Sonny Styles. Would it be Arvell Reese, though? For the New York Giants, I would say Sonny Styles. If I was another team, I would take, well, now I'm factoring in that positional market value stuff that I was saying. So who's on paper the best prospect, highest graded that I would have? It would probably wind up being Sonny Styles. I think that's my answer. No, in this day and age, Daniel, I don't think players take pay cuts. It's when it's Jackson Dart's time to get paid, that's how it goes now. It's this person's turn. It's time for this person to get paid. That's how Tua got all that money. That's how Purdy got all that money. And Purdy is a good quarterback. I like Purdy. People disrespect that guy too much. But Tua, when it's their turn, they get paid and they get the biggest deal possible. Look at Daniel Jones. Look at everybody. So listen, dart's awesome, but it's just the modern NFL. Pay cuts don't happen. And hey, you can win Super Bowls without taking pay cuts. Mahomes, Eli. Oh, damn, Corpsier. You're absolutely right. First win was January 4th. That was a trivia question. That wasn't even a prediction. You got me. That was a good trick question. That was really good. You're right. They did win January 4th. That was against the Cowboys. Can you please tell me who will shine as a player on the New York Giants? Isaiah Likely. I think his role is going to expand, and I think he's going to be a really damn good player. Sam Fountain, thank you so much for another super chat. Really piling it on today, man. Can't express my appreciation for the generosity enough. Will Dex help recruit Christian Wilkins? What would he cost? Christian Wilkins will not cost much. I would assume, costs definitely less than $10 million on a 1-year contract. I would think closer to 5, maybe even lower than that. So Wilkins won't be much. And yeah, I think that if he's interested in playing football, Dex would definitely help recruit him for sure. I think they train together every offseason with my guy Mark that I do a podcast with. He's best defensive line trainer in the NFL. And he works with Dexter. He works with Christian. He works with all these guys. And he works with Buckner, Simmons, Jeffrey Simmons. Guy's a beast. Yes, Dex would help recruit Christian Wilkins. Kobe 81 or Bam 83? Kobe 81. Unethical ball by the Heat and the Wizards and Bam. 43 free throws or whatever it was. It's gross. Stupid. It's why I don't watch the NBA anymore. They don't play defense. They don't try, and they give things away. I'm not a fan. This is also true. This is also a very good point. What's his name? Tom Brady. He had some money to spare, as does Travis Kelce. But all right, guys, I am going to have to start getting myself. I haven't shaved in a while. You can see the beard's gotten a little nasty. I got to clean it up. Girlfriend's not a big fan of it, and I got to go meet new members of her family from out of town that I haven't met before tonight. So I'm going to have to get off of here soon, clean myself up, get myself ready, get in the right headspace to meet new people. You know how it goes. But yeah, drop your last minute questions. Consider this the 2-minute warning. Drop those in. I'll get to them, and then I'll get to shaving. But I will just say thank you, guys. It's over 500 people watching right now, which is awesome, incredible. Much of that coming from Twitter, but appreciate all 170 of you as well on YouTube. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. Like I said, please smash the subscribe button if you haven't. If you're watching on Twitter, you follow me on Twitter, you follow Fireside Giants on Twitter, please help us out. Let's hit that goal. Jump over to the YouTube and hit subscribe to Fireside Giants. If you liked this live stream, you will like the rest of our content for sure that we post every single day on the Fireside Giants YouTube channel. So you can also find us on Apple or Spotify. Leave a 5-star review over there. That helps us a ton. But yeah, help us reach that subscriber goal. It'd be awesome. And we're going to do giveaways for 30K for sure. We're going to have a lot of fun stuff planned for the 30K. Already got my wheels turning on that. But I'm excited, man. Bright future ahead for the Giants, which means a bright future ahead for Fireside Giants. And I love and appreciate everybody who tuned in and who constantly tunes in to Fireside Giants, or consistently, I should say. You guys are just awesome, and it humbles me every day, and I appreciate you all more than you know. So thanks so much. Sub if you're new. If you're not new, smash the like, and also thank you. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode, and comment your thoughts down below in the comments section. If you listen to Apple or Spotify, make sure to leave us a 5-star review and go ahead and follow us on all our social media channels at Fireside Giants. You like how I have that memorized? It's like all one word to me. We'll catch you on the next one. Have a good one. Thanks again. I will tell Alex you said get well soon, Sean. Catch you on the next one. Have a good one. And let's go New York Giants.